Good morning. I am Maddie Russell. Oh no, wait a minute, I'm not Maddie Russell. She can't be here today. I am Kitty Forbush and I am your worship associate for today. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to this service of the First Universalist Church of Rochester. If you are here for the first time this morning, we especially welcome you. Thank you for making it to this worshiping community. Please remain for coffee hour after the service for connection and fellowship. There is a visitor's form that can be found on the back of your order of service or by clicking the link in the chat. Please fill this out so that we can offer you a welcome beyond what we can offer you here on a Sunday morning.
You know who the man is?
If you are looking to be a part of our welcoming ministry at First Universalist, please sign up to offer coffee hour. Partnering with others is encouraged. Our speaker this morning, the Reverend Richard Gilbert, is no stranger to this pulpit or to this congregation. While growing up in the nearby Universalist Church of Bristol, this was his cathedral Universalist church. During his college and seminary days, he preached here several times. Dick has been a Unitarian Universalist minister for 65 years, most recently serving our sibling congregation, First Unitarian, for 32 years. He is now happily retired and a member of this congregation. By the way, he is a former quarterback and a rabid Buffalo Bills fan. Go Bills, we're gonna beat the Chiefs today. Before we take a moment to turn to our neighbor, let us take a moment to turn towards the camera and greet our online worshipers. Please offer a wave. And if you are online, please pop into the chat to offer a greeting. To our online community, please wait to share joys and sorrows until later in the service, so they'll be visible to those here in the sanctuary. If you are here at First Universalist, let us take a moment to turn to our neighbor this morning and offer a greeting. Hello. Please come back. And will you please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, which is number 119 in the gray hymnal, Once to Every Soul and Nation. Good morning, church family. I don't know about you, but being a Unitarian Universalist has transformed me. What our faith asks of us can be transformative. To question, to learn, to listen, to agree to disagree, to change, and to be supported. To embrace the moral imperative to work towards social justice, diversity, inclusivity, and compassion for our congregation, our community, and our world. We have so many opportunities to do that here at First Universalist. Last week, Reverend Lane May Reed's words reminded me to be loud and proud, to continue to speak my truth. I told them that I don't know what I would do without them and our church. But I really don't have to worry because I am here. You are here. We are here. So I stand before you, my out, proud, and loud self, to welcome you to come. Let us worship together. As Sarah Single comes forward to light our chalice at First Universalist, and you light a chalice in your own homes, please join me in our chalice lighting words, spoken in unison. May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. And now I welcome Michael Scott.
Good morning, everyone. I have a question for you. When was the last time you had an extended conversation about something deep and moving? about love and loss, or joy and grief, or the meaning of life, or death and the afterlife, or honor and duty, or the imposter syndrome, or spontaneity. I ask because those are the conversations that really connect us to each other. I had those conversations a lot with Kelly back when we were dating, and sometimes still today. I had them on a pretty regular basis a decade ago when I was in group therapy. But of course, I had to pay for that. But I also get a chance to have deep conversations twice a month as part of a connection circle here at church. There are 7 regulars in our group. We've been meeting now for 8 years. I checked my calendar. That's kind of amazing when I stop to think about it. Alex Pita, who many of you may know, has been the leader of the group throughout that time. He picks topics and readings, usually drawn from materials put together by denominational headquarters. And then we spend about half of our time checking in and catching up on events in each other's lives, and we spend the other half of the time talking about the reading and the topic. It isn't always a life-changing conversation, but it's often pretty great. We've really gotten to know and trust and care about each other. I don't know about you, but I need that sort of connection in my life. This is, I think, the 4th such circle I've been a part of in my 40 years here at First Universalist, and it's been the longest running. Some groups are deliberately short-term. They run for a modest, fixed time and then disband. Some are bigger, some are smaller. Format and choice of topics are also up to the members of the group, who can make of it what they want. I believe we currently have 3 active circles in the church, and as you may have heard, we're looking to start more. If you think you might be interested, talk to Maddie Russell, who's usually the person giving the initial welcome in our services in the morning, or to Reverend Lane May Reed, or to Reverend Michelle. Circles have been one of the best parts of the church for me. I hope they can be for you as well.
Whoa. Thank you, Michael. Please rise in body or in spirit for our affirmation of faith, followed by our song offering. Love is a doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Let's sing this through twice. What please me, what The social justice plate for November is Rural and Migrant Ministry. Rural and Migrant Ministry works for the creation of a just, rural New York State through nurturing leadership, changing unjust systems and structures, and standing with the disenfranchised, especially farm workers and rural workers. This Sunday's offering is received with gratitude for all the gifts we receive in this church, so many of us call home. Please place your offering in the offering basket or give online by scanning the QR code on the back of your order of service. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to First Universalist. Thank you for your generosity. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. Some sing of the past, of battles lost and won. Some sing of their dreams, of a new day in the sun. Some sing out for love, and some sing just for fun. In the circle of song we are one. Come join with me in the circle of song. The young and the old, the weak and the strong, sing with one voice, though we may sing different tongues. In the circle of song we are one.
Some sing of this land, the country of their birth. Some sing of this land, of the beauty of the earth. Some sing of this land for all that it is worth. In the circle of song we are
Tech. Oh, it's me now again. And I am not Reverend Michelle, okay? Are there any children here today that want to come and sit down here? Or, young at heart? This is called After the Fall. And there should be slides. Yeah, After the Fall. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being close to the birds. Then one day I fell. I'm sort of famous for that. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together. Well, most of me. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. Crunch Tiger, Free Toy, bowl of cookies, Choco Duck. Okay. I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing that ladder again. I really missed the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day, an idea flew by. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches. But day after day, I kept trying and trying until I got it just right. My plane was perfect, and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happen in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away again. But then I thought about all the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed. The higher I got, the more nervous I felt. I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept climbing, one step at a time, until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg who got back up and learned how to fly. I invite you into this reverent time of sharing the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place your hand over your heart to be able to listen from this heart-centered place. And I ask now for people online to drop their joys and sorrows into the chat. As Sarah places stones into a bowl, I will read aloud the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. There are not any in our Joys and Sorrows book, but I do have two. One is from A Joy from Connie Valk. The Rural and Migrant Ministry annual event on Friday was a rousing success. The dinner tickets were sold out, thanks to the 12 First Universalists who came to support. During the next 4 years, the estimated 340,000 undocumented farm workers in New York State will need allies. And there's a joy from Catherine. Okay, yep. A joy, my inspirational cards called Musings on Grace have been published and are now available. How exciting. And I have a sorrow from Paula Marchese. Sarah Fry died unexpectedly last week. She was a friend to many UUs here and at Winton Road. Sarah was the daughter of our late member, Jackie Cady, and the late Tom Fry. And we will drop, there's more? Oh, there's one. A joy. I love helping Laura's brownie troop. She slept at our house after an event at Piperwood Camp. And this is a sorrow from Johanna, struggling with COVID for the first time. Wow. And I would think this is a joy from Lois Baum, that Greg is slowly healing. We miss you all. We miss you too, Lois and Greg. Okay, thank you, Lisa. And we will drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys and sorrows held in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. We hold this morning that this church is a worshiping community that is meeting in a time of war. We acknowledge the wars and conflicts that are happening in Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, the Congo, and Sudan. We acknowledge that there are more conflicts and wars happening that we are not even aware of. We earnestly pray for those wars to cease. We light a white candle to acknowledge the grief we feel in this sanctuary and wherever we are worshiping from. Use your sewing bone. It's bad when the wick is stuck into the candle. And we light a yellow candle to acknowledge the joy, the resilience, the tenacity found in life that still makes life worth living. Let us be connected by joy to those living through the direct impact and loss while at war in their homes, backyards, and country. We will hold a brief moment of silence to honor the many deaths that have happened this past week due to wars across our world. Amen.
Good morning. I invite you now to get comfortable in your seats and your pews. Take a deep breath. It's been a long couple of weeks. And please join with me in the spirit of meditation. Thanks be for these to know life is not a given, but a gift. To receive blessings so bounteously bestowed upon us. Thanks be for grace and triumph or defeat, compassion for those with whom we disagree, empathy for the other. Thanks be for the privilege of living in a free nation in which our voice counts, where we matter, where we are free to honor its history with honesty. Thanks be for forgiveness when we diminish others, Thanks be for those who have dared call out cruelty and injustice, who have braved discrimination and hate, who understand that love is at the center. Thanks be for the poor and the dispossessed, for they too have their stories. Thanks be for those who serve the downtrodden and advocate for them and with them in the corridors of power, for they shall both be blessed. Thanks be for blessings that remind us of duties and abundance that cries out to be shared. Thanks be for those who will transcend differences, who will continue the struggle for human rights, who will labor for the beloved community. And thanks be for the needy ones who maintain their dignity, and the prosperous ones who know how to be of use, that we might be of use. To be of use, the greatest blessing. Thanks be for these. Let us be silent together. Amen. Blessed be, may it be so. I invite you to join in our hymn of contemplation. We begin again in love, number 1037 in your teal hymnal. I will do a kind of call and response, not sing, but call, and you will sing. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others. For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit. For losing sight of our unity. for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness. The sky was blue. The air was crisp. Dogs were out walking their people. Joggers jogged and walkers walked. The pavement was firm beneath my feet, and my trekking poles beat out a steady rhythm on the sidewalk. It was a good day to be alive, except it was the Wednesday after the election. And one of those walkers looked depressed. Not clinically depressed, mind you, but still looked depressed. Of course, I was that walker. I am 88, comfortably retired as a Unitarian Universalist minister, whose life, actuarially speaking, is nearing its end. MAGA Republicans scored a trifecta that Tuesday, winning presidency, Senate, and House. But whatever they do, they probably won't affect me personally. Not very much. Nevertheless, I was depressed for my family, my community, my church, my state, my country, my nation. Being born in rural upstate New York, it is not surprising that I grew up as a Republican. And as a teenager, I proudly wore the I Like Ike button. Now, for those of you not old enough to remember, that was Dwight David Eisenhower, who was elected in 1952. I was 16. It was at our UURoc Conference Center, which many of you know, that I, first of all, most importantly, met my wife, but also broadened my political horizons. And I began to think outside the partisan political box. As a minister, I try to avoid narrow partisan politics from the pulpit, but I find it pretty hard these days. One never knows when some pulpit pronouncement may upset someone in the pews. Perhaps even today that may happen, who knows? But today the issues are so stark that I cannot avoid the risk. And so in the traditions of the prophets who spoke truth to power and took their chances, here are my personal takeaways from election 2024. I speak in the tradition of a free pulpit. You listen in the tradition of a free pew. You may or may not agree with what I say. That is your prerogative, and this is mine. American political life today might be characterized as a mystery wrapped in a dilemma surrounded by an enigma, or some combination of these elements. Item: the terrible economy that was such a central campaign issue this time, despite a good gross domestic product, historically low unemployment, and wage growth that exceeds inflation, though inflation was a central feature of this. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was opposed by all but 13 Republicans. And even now, those who opposed it are bragging as they count the dollars flowing into their states, as if they had brought them there themselves, even though they had opposed that very legislation. The fruits of policy often lag its passage. Item: A billionaire of great wealth became the spokesman for many people who were hurting from this economy and not doing so well. Mr. Trump, I think, took a page from the book of the community organizer Saul Alinsky, who organized Rochester's fight community here. Alinsky once said that one must rub raw the sores of discontent to change society. Now, how does the president-elect propose to heal those very sores? Item: a convicted felon stressed law and order as a campaign issue while stoking an insurrection, attacking Capitol Police, and challenging the peaceful transfer of power. He promises to pardon those patriots who participated. Most crime, incidentally, is down. Item: talk of election fraud disappears when you win. Isn't it strange? Item: winners called out their opponents as elitists. Kamala Harris graduated from Howard, an historically black university, and Waltz from Chadron State College, wherever and whatever that is. Both winners had Ivy League credentials. Item: despite his victory, some states voted for Trump and also voted for measures that he strongly opposed, such as increasing the minimum wage or securing abortion rights. This is the new version of a split ticket. Item: President Joe Biden graciously welcomed to the White House the very man who refused to concede the 2020 election. Trump thanked Crooked Joe, again graciously, for a smooth transition. This painful scene raised the question for me: would you rather be right or president? Item: in many ways, progressives are their own worst enemies. They support policies that lift people into the middle class, and then those very people who have been lifted up want to conserve what they already have. And so they become conservatives. Many oppose the programs, the very programs that help them. Item: you've been waiting for this one: Trump cabinet appointees. As Attorney General, a man under investigation for child sex trafficking and campaign finance abuse. As Secretary of Defense, a TV talk show host who is a veteran. As Head of Health and Human Services, a vaccine denier. As Intelligence Coordinator, a former Democratic Congresswoman with no experience in the field. And just last night, I heard the new nominee for the Department of the Energy is a CEO of a fracking company. Go figure it out. And when you have figured it out, let me know when the title of your book on election 2024 will be published. I'd like to read it. Unitarian Universalists hold democracy as a moral principle and seek, in the words of our purposes and principles, to promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in human relations in our congregations and in society at large. I have, by my own count, voted in 17 presidential elections and hope to vote in at least a few more. I've tried to be a good loser, and believe me, I've had plenty of experience at that. In only one election have I felt an existential threat to the very democracy that I love. This is the one. The very moral values I have cherished and advocated for an entire career had been dismissed by millions of people, I am still struggling to understand. I'm a bit ashamed and embarrassed for my nation. Mr. Trump plays the victim card effectively. Aided and abetted by the United States Supreme Court, he has managed to delay cases not only of sexual abuse and hush money, but of undermining the peaceful transfer of power and confidence in the electoral process itself. Raising transactional morality to a new level, Trump is apparently above the law, whining that he is being persecuted. Having survived 2 attempted assassinations, he's believed by many evangelicals to be chosen by God. I doubt he alone will be able to fix it, meaning this garbage can of a country that Biden and Harris have apparently created all by their own selves. Millions of Americans must now be wary of what they wished for. I fear for health pioneer Dr. Anthony Fauci, wondering if he is on the list. For former Trump Chief of Staff General John Kelly, who essentially called Trump a fascist. Or for General Mark Milley, who was virtually accused of treason by Mr. Trump. Our president-elect's moral skin is very thin. I am your retribution, he once said publicly. And evidently, I am a part of the enemy within. So please, when I go to jail, please visit me. I'll need help. Or maybe you will be there too, who knows? In election 2024, there was a backlash to so-called woke culture. And perhaps many of you saw, as I did, some of the ugly transphobic ads that appeared on your television screen and were repulsed by them. But anyone who worries about cisgendered males transitioning to female and playing girls' sports evidently has never witnessed a high school girls' volleyball game. I have, and it is scary. One of those players is here in the congregation with us today. For me, woke means awakened, enlightened. A little twist on that word. And so I conclude that politics is more about emotion than reason. Messaging is more important than the message. Cult is stronger than party. Deep discernment, reasonable reflection, hefty homework is not really in the voting public's DNA. It's all about feeling. That is why Unitarian Universalist values are now so strongly challenged. Our way of reason in religion and in politics seems somehow very quaint. And whatever happened to the common good? Despite progress in ending childhood poverty, renewal of the child tax credit, which have that figure, seems unlikely. After all, if the government does it, it must be wrong. 2 business billionaires are charged with heading a Department of Governmental Efficiency, proposing, as I read last night, to cut up to 1/3 of the federal government's budget. 1/3. I doubt Elon Musk counts his federal largesse in this figure. And what about global climate change? A hoax? A fraud? Tell the people in Florida. or around the world. It's over. Now what? Depressed as I am, I do not intend to move to Canada, though I confess it is sometimes tempting. I choose more for fight than flight, though I would like to fight with the better angels, nonviolently, with the better angels of my being. And despite my political depression, life does go on. I know I will not have many more opportunities to vote in a presidential election, but I intend to live out my life, both spiritually as an individual and prophetically as a citizen. Donald J. Trump is not going to ruin my joy in living, nor will he stem my active existence for his agenda. And at such times I become aware of the cosmic picture of which I am but an infinitesimal part. In the great scheme of things, this moment is just a blip, a rather large blip, to be sure, but a blip. It is not the end of the world. We have been here before, and we have survived. One of my tasks is to enhance my own capacity for empathy. I confess I don't know too many people who wear the MAGA hat. I live in a bubble of liberals and progressives, call us what you may. One of my tasks is for me to try to understand why one would wear the MAGA hat and vote that way. This year, Trump supporters I know are good people. I just don't understand them. And perhaps they don't understand me either. But at least I must try, as I hope they will. The poet Rumi wrote, "Somewhere beyond all the areas of rightness and wrongness, there is a common ground. I'll meet you there, if only." Though politically depressed, I will fiercely resist policies I believe to be wrong. I will be part of, in political speak, of that loyal opposition, loyal to the Constitution and my country and my values, but opposing those actions which I abhor. I need to think not of immediate gratification, but of justice in the long haul, for the long run. The moral arc of the universe, first developed by Unitarian minister Theodore Parker and later enhanced and preached by Martin Luther King Jr., that arc has been bent, but it is not broken. As another act of resistance, I will continue to support those groups, local and national, which seek to serve the inherent worth and dignity of every purpose, of every person, as it is in our UUA bylaws. Take immigration, for example. With some of you, Friday night, I attended the Rural and Migrant Ministry dinner over at Asbury United Methodist Church and was impressed with the work this group is doing. And that event reminded me of a pre-election and unpublished letter to the editor, which I share with you now. It reflects something of my moral perspective. To the editor, immigration is a central issue in the 2024 campaign. Readers will recall Donald Trump's screed against migrants, as he descended the escalator in Trump Tower in 2015. I envision a different kind of speech this year on an ascending elevator. These migrants who crossed our border, they're coming from everywhere. They are often the best. They are people with lots of talents. They are doctors and nurses. They are lawyers and judges and teachers and technicians. They harvest our food and tend our elderly. They lower the crime rate. They are dreamers and parents of dreamers. They enrich our blood, and they enrich our communities. And some, no doubt, are bad people, but we have enough of those already. They're called racists and homophobes, and some are called cult leaders. We may be discouraged, but that is never the last word. I recall the words of my friend, Father Daniel Berrigan, at Cornell University just a few years ago. Dan and I and the chaplains and many others there had been active in the peace movement. He came back for a kind of reunion to recall those days to our memory. It was in the depths of the Gulf War. One student asked him how he could continue without feeling despair, and Dan said, in words both simple and profound, despair is a luxury beyond my means. Despair is a luxury beyond my means. My title says, it's over, meaning election 2024. But the quest for justice is never over. It is not something to be achieved at some point in space and time. It is an ongoing process that not only lasts a lifetime, it lasts even beyond the grave. There are times, I confess, I think maybe I should just take the rest of my life off and enjoy the 2024 version of bread and circuses. This is not one of those times. What next? We are transformed by the world around us for good or ill, and we can be transformers, moving our world a little bit closer to that beloved community of love and justice. Happily, we are not alone. This congregation provides sanctuary for the transformers. Unless we become too disheartened with the political news of the day, I leave you with a favorite cartoon. Depicted is a rather sleepy soul at sunrise, head just barely above the table on which sits a steaming cup of coffee. He says, playing off E.B. White's words, famous quote, "I wake up every morning torn between a desire to save the whales, attain enlightenment, and visit the Dalai Lama, or go back to bed." Makes it kind of hard to plan the day. That, I submit, is the ultimate dilemma for today's Unitarian Universalist. The beloved community may not yet be here, but that vision must continue to get us out of bed in the morning. So arise, buckle up, and get busy. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 140 in the Gray Hymnal, singing the living tradition, "Hail the Glorious Golden City." As we close our service this morning, I invite you to place a hand over your heart. If you're joining online, I invite you to turn to your gallery view setting and look upon the faces here with you. For those of us in this sanctuary, let us look around at those who are with you today. To the good who know how wide the gulf, how deep between ideal and real, who being good have felt the final temptation to withdraw, sit down, and weep, we pray the power to take upon ourselves the guilt of human action, though still as ready to confess the imperfections of what can and must be built, the wish and power to act, forgive, and bless. And let the congregation say, Amen.